And now, the Kill or Be Killed podcast with Damian Ross, founder and master instructor of the Self-Defense Company.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Kill or Be Killed podcast. Damian along with George. And please, as always, remember, hit the subscribe button, just give it a good mash, hit the reminder. And of course, we don't mind give it a little like if you feel so inclined. And all your comments will be responded to in due course. So George and I were just talking about before we came on, his parents, again, got into a car accident where he was missing. So a lot of people were expressing their concern.
Thank you.
For you and your guy and your parents. Just holy shit, man.
Yeah, it's, there's just assholes all over the road, right? So, I mean, as I was telling you, they were hit from behind. They were parked at, they're stopped at a stoplight.
Right.
And the guy behind, texting away, hit them at about 80 clicks. Just smashed into the back. And where do you go? Where do you go? What do you do? Right?
Right.
Thank God there was nothing coming from either side, right?
Yeah.
Or they would have been sideswiped as well, so.
Right. And it's happening, and that's the one thing about, again, I know you ride motorcycles as well.
Yep.
Texting, it's like, that has been the biggest thing, having your phones. And I find myself guilty of this as well. Having your phone on you is the biggest difference, having a smartphone between what happened, which, the last 10, 15 years.
Yes.
There's just a kid up here that we responded to who was in a car accident. Football player was going to Sacred Heart. He was a senior, died. He was texting. He just ran right into the back of a stop truck.
Yeah.
So it's real. And my kid's on me all the time with it whenever I grab. So it's actually a good thing that they're so hyper aware of a problem that we really didn't have to deal with. But, when I hear stories like this, and see it happens, I just, my phone's off, it's just it. It's just, I'm not looking at it.
Well, and and I hear you with what you said, because I'm guilty of the same thing. I'll be out driving, and all of a sudden, you get a buzz on the phone for a second, and that split second, you just naturally go and look, and
right.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes, and it's so true. And just in the self-defense world, I mean, it's probably the biggest distraction for people that's out there right now.
100%. Anything that occupies your hands and your eyes, right? This is what we tell people when they're you getting set up, and they're, when you ask people for the directions or ask people for the time, and typically, smoke or something that will make you look down and move your hands. I mean, right now that's it. Your world goes from this big to this big.
Yes.
And that's, and then that, if people can't get access to you and get close to you, that's the only way it works, is if they can get close enough to you to impose their will.
And I'll just say it's interesting to watch, because I'll be out just kind of people watching, right? And the amount of people that are just walking, staring at their phones as they're going from point A to point B. It's like,
right.
You know what, man? People don't need to walk up to you and distract you anymore, because you're already fucking doing it yourself.
Right. And
really are.
Again, and it makes it easier for people not to be targeted.
Yep.
Because there's a lot more people that are distracted.
Yep.
Right. So, before it was, you had to be approached. You were looking around. Maybe you're like messing with your bags or whatever, whatever you're carrying. Now it doesn't matter. Most people are already distracted, so it's easy enough for them to close the distance. I just want to see if I can get my light working. Okay, good. So, a lot going on. What I wanted to focus on today is what's been happening with, there's been some active shooters or active killer, I should say, situations. The first one that I want to talk about happened in California. This was at a, this was at a church function.
Okay.
So apparently man opened fired during a church outing on Sunday, killing one person and wounding 5 senior citizens.
Jesus.
Now, before being stopped and hogtied by parishioners, in which sheriff's officers called an exceptional heroism act of bravery, which it 100% is. So most likely more people would have been seriously injured or killed if the parishioners didn't respond.
Yep.
And I'm guessing, given that the age of the victims, the suspect was a man. I mean, again, they're giving his race, so he's an Asian man in his 60s. And the victims were 66, 75, 82, 92 years old, and 86 years old. So this is not a group of spring chickens,
No.
right?
This is age on age violence. Like,
Yeah, correct. And again, it's not. It's what's happening is, as we're getting back out into the world, is that these events are happening again. This is like it does. When they always say the old adage, would you bring a gun to church?
yeah.
And the reality is, yeah, you should. You should bring your gun. You should bring your body armor, and any place where there's a low security, high group of people,
Yes.
limited exits. You'd be interested to know that a lot of people who do buy our backpacks, they are church security.
Yep.
So once the event starts, or once mass starts, they're shutting the doors down and they're standing guard. Or there's people who are in the parish who are assigned to go to the threat.
Yep.
It's a hell of a way to make a statement, but this is what's happening.
But it makes sense that that's where the majority of body armor purchasers would come from, because I mean, politics and religion are your two like leading causes, in my opinion, anyways, of violence. It brings out the most violent actions for whatever reasons.
Right. And it's the easiest, and it's the best way to make a statement, right? So if you have a political rally, if you have a religious gathering, and we'll get into what we'll get into the traits of an active shooter and some of the things we can do later in the podcast. But so when you're getting involved or when you're active, in these communities, I mean, anything that's political or religious. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm texting and podcasting right now. So anything that puts you, where you can identify something, that you're part of a tribe that someone else isn't,
Yeah.
So you got to be. That's it. You got to be hyper aware. I mean, going but it doesn't even matter, because I'm sure you saw what happened in Buffalo, right?
And I saw I just saw a news briefing on it actually when I was out on Sunday, and I mean it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And right away it was considered a hate crime. I believe I was reading about that. So
yeah, he of course it was a 18-year-old white kid killed 10 people in a supermarket. Obviously,
and they were black, right? Is that
for the most part? There was one white woman, but yeah, it was, he's had a rifle, wearing body armor, came, it surveyed he drove from about 200 miles away. He didn't, he had obviously, and we'll get into this next. He came and surveyed the area. He picked where he's gonna target.
He wasn't messing around.
He wasn't messing around. He was coming to go. He was coming to play. And just when you think, it's never going to be over, right?
No.
So we can't wish this shit away. And I refuse. At the same time, I have to keep telling myself to not let this be the new normal.
Yeah.
Right. And because it's frustrating. And I say that because we should be outraged every time this happens. And we should constantly be working to stop this before it happens, or react accordingly to minimize the loss of life when it happens.
Yeah.
Now, they don't. I mean, here now they're okay. So let me just say, known as post activity taking place on, and like how many black and white people were there. I also drew a map. Okay, so in the article, now this came out, this most recent one, it's like, I won't say his name, but he noted in this post activity taking place in the market, like how many black and white people there were. He also drew a map depicting the store aisles, pharmacy, bakery, and exit points of the building. He wrote that he did his reconnaissance, and these guys are fucking posting and talking about it. Black armed security guard who said, "I've seen you go in and out. What are you doing?" Suspect wrote that he told the security guard that he was collecting consensus data, for which the security guard said he needed to talk to the manager. So the security guard noticed something was up.
Yep.
Right. And he did something about it. I mean, here's the thing. I go, if you call the cops for a guy coming in and out of your store, they can't do anything because it's not breaking any laws.
Yeah.
So I asked for his name and he told me, and I instantly forgot. Then I said bye and thanks, walked back to my car. In hindsight, that was a close call. This is the suspect talking. Again, in a post he wrote on March 10th, "I'm going to have to kill that security guard at Tops. I hope he doesn't kill me or even hurt me instantly." Right? He added that the attack would take place on March 15th, but ended up postponing the date several times. Holy shit.
I mean, when you kind of segued into this and you were talking about how you don't want to treat it like it's the new normal, I mean, the reality is we do need to kind of treat it like it is the new normal, because
right,
it is fucking happening. And if we don't talk about it, everybody's keeping their hands or heads in the ground, right? Heads in the sand. And this is what's happening. This kind of shit is what's going on. So
he also considered attacking a church or an elementary school before setting on a supermarket. And again, he's all communicating these things publicly. And this is where, it gets, look, there's a line between, oh, that guy's an asshole, I hate him, and I think I'm going to have to kill that security guard.
Yeah.
For somebody to say, nobody that is reading this, ever thought to report this. And I'm asking that because I don't know. It very well could have been reported and not acted upon, because that does happen often, where someone would see, find a list, see some artwork.
Does it say where this guy was posting this? Was this like in a closed kind of chat thing, or just like a public sort of social network?
Let me just say the massacre files at the Conclave 2 on Fire Sunday. Okay, the ATL Americans a race mass shooting Buffalo early March. So it was here in early March, but the suspect, who was from Conklin, about 200 miles away, opened fire on Saturday. Massacre and other mass shootings. Authorities say a white supremacist suspect was motivated by. Okay. The commissioner said he couldn't comment. The suspect wrote and posted on Discord, so that's usually within a group chat.
Yeah.
Again,
So I wonder the people that he's writing this to. I mean, what the fuck are they up to? Is this another group who's planning other attacks elsewhere?
Right. Like, and we obviously got access to it. Right. I mean, all those fucking people should be brought in. I mean, who's letting this shit go?
Yeah.
At what time at what point, and this is where it gets tricky, is where, we start, making people who are aware on some level accomplices.
Yeah. When do they become guilty?
Right. And when have we crossed the line in turning this into a complete military state? And by the way, this isn't fucking free speech, right? This is, fire in a crowded movie theater. This is specific intent on killing other human beings over multiple instances. And again, no one on Discord is like, maybe again, like I said before, maybe this will surface, but you see this activity, you have to say something.
Yeah, and I mean, and this shit that you're talking about is really fucking specific. It's not like, hey, I'd like to go out and just shoot a security guard. It's really specific as to who, when, where,
Yeah,
how,
right.
why. Yeah.
I want to go kill that fucking guy for this fucking reason.
Yeah.
And again, getting into what happened, he wore tactical gear, and he live streamed the attack on Twitch.
Jesus Christ.
Which obviously the company took it down. No fault to Twitch. Not that I'm on that, but it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Right. And inside, he allegedly used a semi-automatic rifle, so to kill 10 people and wound 3 more. 11 victims were all black, I'm sorry, officials say, and the attack is being investigated as a hate crime. Again, this kid is freaking broken. He's done. Get rid of him. Again, it's tragic as, whatever happened in his life to bring him to this point. I'm like,
yeah.
At what point is he going to be a useful member of society in any way, other than to study what's wrong with him?
Yeah.
In order to prevent this shit. That's the only value he has. Suspect had other target locations down the street from the supermarket. They found another rifle and a shotgun in his vehicle. He was not going to be finished with killing as many blacks as possible, the sheriff said. He credited the quick arrival of 2 police officers for preventing the attacks. Those killed range from age 32 to 86. Among them, the former police officer tried to stop the gunman and a number of people doing their regular weekend grocery shopping. Many more would have probably been killed. Okay, of course, because they're planning on it. This guy allegedly wrote 180 pages outlining his beliefs.
Jesus. And here, this is just going to be a continuation cry for, and this is why we need to ban guns and everything. And it's like, you know what? Let's get to the fucking root of the problem. How about the fucker who's on social media doing this shit, right?
And if people were armed in the store, who knows, right? Again, there's no guarantees against any of this stuff, but one must think that if you're armed and trained and you're in that store, I'm like, you're gonna fire rounds back down range. And the reason why these guys pick these soft targets is because they anticipate
exactly
zero resistance, because what they want is a body count. They don't want to they don't want to be one and done. So it's and if somebody who's willing to do this, they're willing to find means to buy a weapon illegally.
Of course.
So, while heroin is illegal, unless you're, a pharmaceutical company, but, heroin is illegal, yet me with no criminal ties whatsoever can still go and find it probably within 5-6 hours.
Yeah. And here's the thing: you get fucking people like this. If it's not a gun, it's a fucking machete. If it's not a machete, it's a fucking bomb. Like, you know what I mean? They're always going to find ways.
The only upside with the machete is that you get tired. I mean, and you need to be close to somebody to do it. I mean, obviously, the weapon of choice is a firearm.
Yep.
I mean, or a bomb.
Yep.
To your point, I'm like, what the hell? What if you decided I'm not going to shoot the place up? I'm going to just, make an explosive and drop it in a backpack and call it a day and leave. So, while we have to get to the root of the evil, not the means at which they implement their evil. So
But I think that when we talk about what we get, we get at the root of the evil, but we also have to get to the root of how do we prevent people from becoming victims. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form these people deserved it, but like you said, the security guard had noticed something prior, right? There's a lot of shit that's going out there online. Like, people have to, when they see stuff going on, they have to be diligent. They have to be aware of what's going on. And I think that nobody goes to the supermarket that day thinking today's the day that I'm going to get fucking shot, right?
Right.
But maybe we need to start thinking, hey, today's the day I could, like, and I know that's a little backwards in a way, and kind of
Is it? I mean, I
a
hear what you're
bad way to
saying.
think. It's a bad way to think, but is it a bad way to think, right? Like, I mean,
I said, like, like we say, be your own hitman, right? Be
yeah,
your own first responder, be your own cop, all those little slogans, but you are responsible for your own safety. And part of that, like, again, this is like day one shit, being aware of your freaking surroundings. I mean, something doesn't look right. And this guy you would spot from a mile away. I mean, he's wearing tactical gear and carrying a rifle.
yeah,
That's probably why the cops got tipped off,
as quickly as
responded
they
to
did. Yeah,
quickly because, he's not hiding.
yeah.
Right. I mean, he's here, he's ready to go. And yeah, it's going to happen.
And I think that's where that whole, that the shock value, falls in, and the whole fight, flight, and a lot of times it's just a fucking freeze, right? I'm sure there
Right.
was probably a shit ton of fucking freeze there. And when we go back to the people who took action at the parish, I mean, thank God that survival mode forced them to fight instead of,
I would
fleeing or.
venture to guess that the majority of the people who responded were veterans of some type. Given their age group and that they're religious, they probably served in some capacity. Which again, when you're dealing, if you've got experience, dealing with violence on any level, you have a better chance of reacting.
Yes.
So, but there are also people that responded in the Buffalo shooting, but they got killed.
Yeah.
So, like we said, like, everyone should be armed, like we want to arm people, but we also want to give people, also protection and body armor and things like that. And there are things like obviously like our backpacks, that, can fit in your everyday lives along with your concealed carry. But when you look at like, if anyone's familiar with Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman,
Yeah.
who, when this first started after Columbine, he kind of came out as like the go-to guy with like school shootings and training law enforcement. So a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about next is from his research and work. And even though it's geared towards schools, it can be applied to, to any of the other soft targets. So, like we said, what are the things that an active shooter, or more appropriately, an active killer, because we shoot, we don't kill things, so the term shooter should probably be replaced with killer, but everybody knows active shooter, so we'll stick with that. So their goal is, at the end of the day, is body count, right? They want the least amount of resistance. They want a lot of people packed into a confined area with limited exits. So where do you find that? Obviously, you look at schools, you look at libraries, you look at trains, subways,
Movie theaters, stadiums.
Yep. Again, malls, even though malls have a lot of exits, but it's, parades, festivals, right?
Restaurants, pubs,
Right. So, and these areas that are targeted, obviously are low security. Like, I've worked security for large events, and without, we usually have metal detectors coming in. We're, we would pat people down. We'd have law enforcement at the points of entry, doing the pat downs and handling any of the contraband.
Mm-hmm.
So at least there's some level of security there. But most of these other places, like as we mentioned, don't have any. I mean, schools are doing a better job of limiting points of entry.
Yep.
I mean, that's like now you only go in the school like during school hours, one way in, one way out.
Yep.
There's cameras, there's alarm doors. You can't, you can get out, but you can't get in. So, what do these active shooters have in common from a personal perspective, and what makes them tough to stop? I mean, first off, there are like approximately 6 things they all have in common. One is they've had some trauma or violence or being bullied in their lives. So if you look back in this shooter's history, you're going to find something, right? The other thing, the second thing is when they obviously have access to firearms, because if you can't get a gun, you can't get anything. So third, they fantasize about violence through video games, movies, music, artwork.
Yeah.
So like violent entertainment leads to violent thoughts. Now, if your kid plays Halo or Grand Theft Auto, that doesn't mean he's going to be an active shooter. This is like smoking causes cancer. Well, yes and no. Like there's a lot of people who smoke that don't have cancer.
That's right.
So if you have all of these factors, this is one factor in a multitude in 6.
Yeah.
So, when we're going to these things like, listening to violent music, make sure you're going to want to kill somebody, no. Yeah. But if you, molested me as a child, if you have guns in the home, and, I start planning ahead and I do these other things and I listen to violent music. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sacrificing little kittens and shit. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So the next is they plan ahead. So like this guy, and this is every active shooter, drives by, they do the run through, they actively plan. It's not something that is spur of the moment, right? Like they want to make sure that they get that body count. They want to make sure that they get the notoriety. So without that body count, without that, high profile kill rate, they're not going to get what they want out of it. And this leads to, they also don't plan on escape or even survival. They kind of want to get caught because they're caught. If they get caught, then their name gets associated with the killing, and that's the notoriety.
Yes. Now everybody's going to know who the fuck I am type of thing. Yeah.
Right. And then lastly, we talked about this. They search for easy access, high population areas like we mentioned. So, if you know someone, right, who's, maybe they're, and this is tough with parents and kids, but obviously if you're a coach, if you're a teacher, and you notice someone's like, is a little off, and then you find like a kill list, which has happened. I mean, this has got to be something you've got to address. That's somebody even says something. There was, an off-color comment from one of the kids when they had their first like mental health day, which was they had a late start. One of the kids like, yeah, they're doing this so we don't come in and shoot up the school. He said it in a group chat. While it was a joke, the kid had to come in. The police came in. They talked to him. I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, this is. And while some parents were like, well, it's a little overreaction, I go, not really.
Is it? Like,
it's not. It's not, because this is, this is the world we live in, and it's got to be addressed. Yeah, sure. When you go see the kid and you're like, look, dude, we got to look at your fucking search history. We got to see what you're into, because, are there any guns in the home? Right. I mean, is it? I mean, this has got to be something that, you've got to chase down. And if you don't, because what you don't hear about are the hundreds of incidences that are stopped.
Yes.
Like all the time. from people just kind of paying attention and getting out of their comfort zone. And this is a tough thing, again, especially teachers, especially coaches, not so much, because the kids that are involved in sports generally don't do this kind of shit.
That's true.
They don't. You're learning teamwork. They typically don't. They're usually, alone and live outside society, so they don't have connection to who they're going to kill.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when you're doing these types of things, you have a tendency to dehumanize your targets, and that's why also when we train and we're dealing with this thing, we talk about hitting the target.
Yeah.
Not hitting that person. There's a specific psychology with that, because you can't give a shit about what you gotta injure.
That's right.
So that's, it's subtly laced into the tactics. So Grossman put together a list of a few things that about preventing a active killer, and again, a lot of it's geared towards schools, but it can be modified for literally any application. So the first foremost thing is denial. Denial is the enemy, and it has no survival value, and that's a fact. I mean, that is any self-defense.
Yes.
Denial that there's a need for it. Denial that it's ever going to happen to you.
And then denial that it is happening when it is fucking happening.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you need to accept that this shit happens. It's like you said, when you go out, like I said before, George, when you go out, you got to assume, hey, what if someone's going to come and shoot up this place? When am I going to run for cover? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Who am I with? How am I going to get them going?
Yeah.
And even put it into their head when we're like walking into the mall and I'm with my son or my daughter. I'm like, okay, if shit goes down, I go, we got to look for cover like right away. And they look at me like, what? I go, yeah. So I don't want you to sit there and be like just that little like mental framing, we call it mind setting.
Yep.
At least it puts that little bug in your head where, okay, something goes out of the way, I'm just going to look to get behind something.
Yeah. There's no need to be fucking neurotic about it, but definitely have it there.
Right. I mean, then next we're looking for, obviously if you're carrying, great. If you got body armor, better, or, vice versa, switch it. So, but also looking for like things like fire extinguishers.
Yep.
And we say, why fire extinguishers? Look, if I need to cover ground, the best way if I need to escape without cover, the best way to do that is in the battlefield is to pop smoke. That's why they put the smoke up, so you can't see the target. They can't see you. So at least if, you've got like, especially if it's a CO2, something that can make a big fog, do that if you need to cover ground and get out, like cross a hallway or something like that. The next is deter. So these are the 5 Ds, right? So first is denial, next is deter. Put police officers in schools, because just one officer assigned to a school, the probability of mass murder in that school drops to almost 0. So this kid talked about the security guard in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Shit.
He was a deterrent. I'm going to have to kill him.
Yeah. I almost got caught.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to kill him.
I
don't know if the security guard was armed or not, but my guess is that he probably wasn't. So if he was armed, he probably would have picked someplace else.
Yep.
Unless he's going to, take him out before entering the store. But for the most part, it's like when you're walking down the street and you make casual eye contact and you don't look like a victim, you look like a predator. So, you don't look like prey. It's that same kind of feeling where it's like, look, if I think I'm going to get resistance out of this person, I'm just going to go pick another target. He had other places on his list. He just started at the store.
Yeah.
Right. So fact is, man, he's like, dude, he's like, he would have just gone someplace else.
And I bet you, if they asked him why did you had all these other spots, why did you start at the store? I bet you say because it was the fucking easiest.
Right. I had the most amount of people
Yep.
in the smallest amount of area. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know why he picked that area, why he drove 200 miles, what his connection is to that area. I'm sure a lot of it's going to come out. Just these things aren't, selected at random. Again, you can't figure out what he's thinking, but if you're reading his posts on Discord, you are.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so next is detect, talking about, police work here. The ultimate achievement of law enforcement is a crime didn't happen. So giving teachers and administrators regular access to cops is paramount. So for regular people, who aren't, or people who aren't teachers, I mean, we just talked about it. You're on Discord. You're in this group. Unless, you're thinking, if you're just as fucked up as this guy and you think this is a good idea, then you've got a problem.
Well, you're just as responsible. You're just as responsible as the fucker who pulled the trigger.
Right. But if you're on there and you see it, you can't just blow this stuff off. Especially if it's, if it's hyper specific and multiple times. He talked about going there. He wrote 180 pages someplace. So holy shit.
Yeah.
So, to take another life and to take lives like this, it takes a certain amount of I hate to use the term resolve, but commitment and energy to do it. And it's not something that the killer takes lightly. And
Right.
he's, he feels strongly about it. I mean, it's not a natural thing to want to just kill another human being. But he feels so strongly about it that he's got to express himself and convince himself and work through the process of up into doing the act.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's not like he's sitting there and you're hanging out with him and he's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, and just wakes up that day and just decides to drive 200 miles to kill a shitload of people. Yeah. So the next D is delay. Various simple mechanisms can be used by teachers and cops to put a time and distance between the killers and the kids. Ensure the classroom, school has a single point of entry. Simply locking the back door helps create a hard target.
Yep, utilizing barriers.
Right. Conduct your active shooter drills within and in partnership with the schools in your city so teachers know how to respond and know what it looks like when you do your response. Right. So any type of area like this should have security. I mean, even if you're coming into a subway platform and I don't know what, again, you were talking about, we're sacrificing freedom for safety, right? I mean, that's the constant security, and the schools are easy enough to do, but the rest of your life isn't. Imagine having to go through airport-like security every day to get on a subway or a train. What does that add to your life and your commute? And these things don't happen often enough for people to warrant to sit through that extra 2 hours every day. So, it's up to you to take care of your own security, period. So, that again gets to, if you can carry, great. I mean, everybody, if you're going in these areas, you should have some body armor with you.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the deadly gunshot wounds are to the chest, to the major organs. I mean, you're going to survive overwhelming number. I think it's only, this will be another podcast because I started doing the research on this, but really only like 3% of the people that get shot actually die.
I believe that.
So, and you die typically from, bleeding out, and that's where you got to get, you've got to get hit in like a major organ or a major blood vessel, or obviously in the back of the skull, because even if you get a target in the head, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna die. Obviously, depending on the size of the bullet and the size of the wound, but most of the wounds are done with handguns, so they're terribly not massive wounds. But
Right.
anyway, so it's important that we all take care of our own responsibility. I think everybody that's on here does it, and is one of those people that will, um, react in a positive way when something happens.
I think that we're at a point now where people really need to, adopt the mindset of better to have and not need than need and not have for fucking everything. I mean, we've all got, or well, we all should have insurance, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
it's there. I remember growing up, and my parents were like, make sure you have a condom in your wallet all the time, right?
Right.
Better have and not need than need and not have. And it's the same
Right.
thing when it comes to, self protection as well as body armor and carrying a firearm and stuff like that. Because
I still have that condom, by the way.
yeah, that's right. It wasn't the lucky condom, was it?
Or maybe it was. Not for me, for them.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah.
But it's that whole fucking mindset, and I think more and more people are starting to adopt that mindset now. But I mean, being locked up for the last couple of years has made people even fucking crazier. It's made them even crazier.
Hasn't made them crazier, and have made people even more complacent.
I think it's both, right? I think
Right,
the crazies have gotten crazier, and the complacent have gotten more complacent.
Right, because you haven't had to even. It hasn't even been in your mind on any level now.
Yeah.
Right. So now here it is. We're back.
Yeah. And and you were doing we're doing the webinar or a couple weeks ago there on sporting events, people being fucking stupid at sporting events.
Right.
And just here in Toronto, Game 7 Leafs game, right? The Leafs lost again. Sorry, Toronto fans, but they were booted out, and of course fights fucking erupt there, right? Because people just don't know how to fucking act.
No. So yeah, I'm like, and the last thing is destroy.
Yes.
Right. So we gotta, how do we stop these guys as it's happening? Police officers, agencies should consider the following: carry off duty. No one would tell a firefighter who has a fire extinguisher trunk. And God, I can't even speak. No one would tell a firefighter who has a fire extinguisher in his trunk that he's crazy or paranoid.
That's right.
Equip every cop in America with a patrol rifle. One chief of police, upon getting rifles for all his officers, once said, "If an active killer strikes in my town, the response time will be measured in feet per second." Put smoke grenades in the trunk of every cop car in America. An infantryman who needs to attack across an open terrain, like we talked about before, or perform a rescue under fire, deploys a smoke grenade. Fire extinguisher will do a decent job in some cases, but a smoke grenade is designed to perform and function for that. Is designed to perform that function. Have a go-to-war bag filled with loaded magazines and supplies for tactical combat casualty care. This could also be a bulletproof backpack loaded with shit.
Yep.
Like we have the first responder for a reason. It's got a quick deploy belt. You can throw it on, pop it, and go and add magazines and first aid equipment to the front as well. So, so I said, I'm like, the only thing would be again the use of body armor in this, and he's also the next is use helicopters. Somewhere in your county, you probably have one or more of the following: a medevac, media, private, and national Coast Guard rotors. Finally, armed citizens can help. Remember back like United 93 and on 9/11, whatever your personal gun take on gun control. It's all but certain that a killer set on killing is more likely to attack a target where the citizens are unarmed, rather than one where they're likely to counter an armed citizen response. So being aware, arming yourself, having body armor with you, these are things that, you can adjust, especially if you're willing. If you're going to carry a firearm, you should, you should have body armor. If you're going to do that, then you can have the extra magazines, smoke grenades, sea locks, tourniquets, crap like that. They're not heavy. They can fit right in the bag.
Yep.
And your first thing is going to do is one with every life or death situation is one is your personal safety. If you're not yourself secure, you're not going to be able to save anybody else.
Yep.
Right. So that's one. Two is okay. And stop the threat. So the first thing you're going to do is like, you're going to find cover, pop your armor, draw your weapon. Now you're going to go fucking hunting.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to try to fucking take this motherfucker out. Once he's done, now you've got, okay, who's hurt? Now you take the bag off, you go through your kit, you start, tourniquet, C-lock, start, triaging people and do that. I mean, training helps. Yes. Obviously we've had training. Obviously, as a first responder, I've had training, but it's not complicated because all you got to do at this point is just the average response time, especially for an active shooter, where you are is going to be like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where you are. I mean, in Jersey, it's faster than other places because, for obviously reasons, we're fucking on top of each other.
Yeah.
But, if you're in a rural area, it's going to be longer. But again, you'll have time to communicate to law enforcement. You'll have, and the cavalry will be there. You just don't want to have somebody like bleeding out, right? So, that'll be it. But again, the faster, you're safe, take care of the threat, help the wounded.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, yeah, it's not complicated. It's just fucking hard.
Yep.
Right. I mean, and now, this is the world we live in, man. This is it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are. Again, people always talk about, it happens everywhere. It happens up by you. Yep. Happens down here. People always joke, well, Canada doesn't have as many. I'm like, bro, you've got 1/10 the population of us.
Exactly.
I'm like, it's like 30 something million versus 330 million. I'm like, bro, it's all a matter of numbers.
Yeah, and it's definitely happening. I mean, just within the last couple of weeks, we had an incident at a local high school here, just about 20 minutes from where I am.
Oh, really? What happened?
Yeah, just a kid brought a gun into school, right? And of course, fucking everybody shows up, and nobody was shot, luckily.
Yeah.
Right. But it's that simple, and it happens that fast.
Dude, I was just talking about this with my buddy Steve, who's he's actually he's an admiral in the Coast Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he was also a circuit judge because he does the Coast Guard Reserve. So anyway, when we were like, I want to say seniors, a kid, keep his name out of it. Police showed up at school. And I remember them walking him out, and the kid was wearing a suit, which I thought was bizarre.
Yeah, a little bit.
And they're like, yeah, they brought a gun to school. And this was back in 85, 86. And the kid brought a gun to school. Police tossed his car, found the weapon, and pulled the kid out. I don't remember seeing the kid again. My buddy Steve and my other buddy Scott, who coincidentally became a sheriff's officer down in Florida, we're watching the cops toss his car with him out there from like biology class.
Yeah.
So this shit happened. It was happening. It not with the frequency that it does today. Again, because it's like the 4-minute mile. Right? It's like once somebody breaks it and does it, all of a sudden, oh, that's a possibility.
Yes.
So now it's bigger and better. And as we, as we become, as there's more people and people become more, it's like more and more and more and more. I mean, the only thing that I think it's not going to prevent it, but it will lessen the impact is people being aware and prepared.
Yep.
And then finally, the hardest part, willing. But if you're willing, you'll be aware and prepared.
That's right.
So it starts with the will. If you don't want this to happen, okay, great. And, and you don't have to be, ex-Army Ranger. you be a regular person.
Yep.
But you're like, you know what? I'm going to, familiarize myself with a firearm. I go to the range once a month, once every couple months, and just, do it. Stay practice on it. Think about it. Get some armor when you're going places. Like I said, my kids have backpacks. They've got our backpacks. Some brings it to school every fucking day. And, just by doing that guarantees nothing's going to happen, because that's how shit works.
That's right.
Right. It's like power goes out. I get a generator. Power never fucking goes out.
Exactly.
So good on us. Right.
Yep.
I don't got to worry about it. So, yeah. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Appreciate you coming by. Please, put your comments below. Ask questions. This is what we're here for. Hit the like and subscribe, and of course the little reminder. So when we do post something, we post stuff usually about once a week. We're not going to inundate you with multiple posts. I'm too lazy, and we'd rather have quality than quantity.
That's right.
So, yeah, man. So, George, again, we got an instructor program thing coming up.
Yeah, actually, we're going to be putting together a call next week. So that is the plan. And what we're looking at covering is how to get off to a quick start. And if you're for the people who are just getting started, for those, who've been with us, we are going to be talking about how to restart and get it, reinvigorated again now that things are much more open and people are ready to start getting back to this kind of thing. So,
right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, as always, we got the Bodyguard backpack. A lot of good things coming up with that. So check it out, bulletproofbodyguard.com. Start training with us. You can start with some free lessons at myselfdefensetraining.com. All those links are underneath. Again, the link to the instructor programs underneath. And finally, again, as always, please like and subscribe. And we'll hit you up. And again, much appreciated. Leave your comments, all that stuff. Until next time, everybody, train honestly. Oh, nice.